Hey everybody, I'm Colin,
And I'm Chris.
and this is episode 2 of You Enjoy Ourselves.
Yes, if you didn't catch the first episode, this is a series where we break down clips. In this case, we've been looking at some Trey stuff, but we're not going to confine ourselves to that. We'll eventually branch out a little bit, and we just share a clip. The other one hasn't seen, what we're going to share, and we just kind of try to extract some fun stuff that we can apply to our playing, all of us, and some maybe little gems and little lessons in it. So last time on episode 1, it was Colin's turn first, and he shared a great example from Yamar. So if you didn't catch that, make sure you do. I should say this: the odd episodes are going to be on my channel, Fish Guitar Lessons, and then the evens, the one you're watching right now, they're going to be on Colin's channel. So if you miss one, just head over, make sure you subscribe to both of us and all that, and that way you won't miss it. And today is my turn, and I'm going to share an example from the sand from Big Cypress. It's not going to be a very long clip, but part of what I hope to kind of impart here is how much you can get out of a little bit. Part of the reason I wanted to share this, just to kind of tee it up a little bit, is I recently got Sirius XM, and they have this segment called Ask Trey, which I could just listen to that all day long. It's so cool. And anyway, somebody asked Trey something to the effect of like, if you could, they were like, I know you like to move on in your improvising or whatever, but if you could relive a jam, what would it be? And one of them, shoot, I'm going to forget the second one, but the first one was Sand from Big Cypress. That was something he said. And so immediately, I already love Big Cypress. My wife was actually there, which I'm quite jealous of. At any rate, that's why I chose this one, because it had there was something special to Trey, and I figured, hey, there might be something cool to dig into. Now, the part I'm going to share here, I'm going to play the audio, or play the video, and hopefully the audio works too. And then we'll kind of break it down and talk about it a little bit. I've got a couple things for everybody to try that I think are kind of interesting things that are largely rhythm based, but also tying into the realm of phrasing. I think that's something I've heard a lot. I don't know about you, Colin, but a lot of people ask for help with phrasing. Like they've got some scales and chords, and in a lot of cases, a lot of those things, and yet phrasing sometimes doesn't feel satisfying. So my aim is to help with that kind of thing and see what we can learn from Trey. So, right on. Okay, let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to play this clip. I'll play like 30 seconds of it. As you're going to see, it's it's very simple, but beautiful. So here we go. All right. Yeah, I'll play it, from about 7:40. This is on P Fish's channel. Shout out to P Fish. Give him a subscribe. I'm sure he's got some other awesome things on there. And I'm going to play it till probably about like 8:10 or 8:15 or thereabouts. Okay, so let me unshare that. Okay, so your initial reaction to that, some people may be wondering, why the heck, there's probably a million shreddy things, later, why on earth would I do that? Not that I'm asking you to guess that, but anything jump out to you when you hear that clip?
Patience.
Yeah.
Patience is, I could keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
Patience establishing the groove. And if I can say one thing about Big Cypress, I've traveled all over this country, especially when I was younger. And my cousin, who's a few years older than me, when I moved out to Minnesota with him, like that, he was saying how that Big Cypress show was Mecca. And I met so many people along the way that Big Cypress show, they were at that and it was Mecca. So while Trey was at Mecca, it was a long show, right? There was like that world record 9-hour set or however long it was. But I think that was probably their mission going into that festival, was like, let's really dig into the jam, and to do that, you, words I've said in the last episode, you can't dump the truck the whole time, right? So you got to have just let people dance to a nice chill lick that can repeat for however long. All right, I don't want to talk too long.
Love that, man. I love that. Dump the truck. I really love that. It's beautiful. So yeah, absolutely. That's what jumped out to me, the patience of it. But if you watch Trey, you can see he just cannot sit still with that little groove. Like, it really is all about that. And yet there's so much room for creativity in that seemingly simple groove that's happening. There's so much there's infinite space there to do things, and to kind of launch into some other areas and different sounds and stuff. I'm gonna play it again, and there's a little variation that happens that's part of what I want to share here. Just kind of listen for it, Colin, and everybody out there watching. Trey does a little cool, just the slightest little thing here, that'll help kind of set up the rest of this. So let me reshare that. I'm gonna go back, a few seconds here, back to about like about 7:40 is where I was doing it. Although it kind of like the whole thing's awesome. So like you could pick any spot, but here we go. You hear that little ba-ba-ba-ba? I'm going to go back a couple seconds. He changes it up a little bit. Right there it happened. Right around 8. So, I encourage you to listen to this, not on a shared computer screen, but listen with headphones on, and you'll really get a good sense of it. Let me unshare that. Okay, so that'll kind of help set up a couple of the things I wanted to share. So just as a bird's eye view of a couple of the concepts I wanted to try to extract out of this, one of them is going to be rhythmic displacement, which is where we can take a rhythmic motif and then we just play around with sort of shifting it around. And part of the beauty of this kind of concept, thank you. That's amazing. I love that. Part of the beauty of this concept is that it takes some of the pressure off in terms of, especially I find with guitarists, we're so enamored with scales and arpeggios and stuff, and I think we feel, we never feel quite satiated with the pitch side of things. And so, the right is you're saying right hand is where, yeah, the right hand in the variations we can come up with rhythmically, it can take some of that pressure off and say, hey, you've got all the stuff you need, just maybe just vary it a little bit. So that's one of the concepts I'm going to share. That's the first thing. The second thing I'm going to share is this kind of idea of taking one of those rhythmic motifs and then substituting notes, and you can be really creative with it. I'm going to show you how you could substitute with chord tones. In this case, it's kind of an A minor or A minor 7. So I was just picking some A minor chord tones and just plopping a different note in here or there with the exact same rhythmic template. And you can quickly see how you can get some really creative ideas going. And then I'm going to do a similar idea with, and I broke it down into sort of an A phrase and then a B phrase. And then on the B phrase, just to kind of have fun and switch it up, then I did a substitution with some blues scale notes. So like it's the same concept, but just using a different raw material. And then you'll never get bored. It's like I had a lesson with a guy yesterday and shared some similar ideas because he was saying, hey, I'm in a band and we vamp. And I sometimes kind of don't know what to do. I get kind of a little bored or kind of like use up my ideas. And I'm like, this is a boredom killer right here. Like rhythmic displacement and substituting notes and stuff really will get rid of that. You never could get bored if you stay open. Then the last thing I'm going to share is going to be from an unlikely source potentially. Mostly what I teach in person is kid piano lessons, and which I really love. And there's a book that I work from a lot of times, and it has a great little section about the concept of a musical question and a musical answer, and you can have a parallel answer and a contrasting answer. And though Trey he doesn't like follow it to a T like exactly, I think there's some value in that. And it's a beautifully simple idea that again can keep you creative for days. Okay, so before I jump in, any thoughts on any of that so far, Colin, or just ready for go for the ride?
Oh, just real quick, I put variate notes, but you like the term substitute notes? Is that probably more
No, that's perfect. No, it's all
that
good,
works?
man.
It's about the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
thing.
Because in fact,
Yeah.
in the thing that I'm going to share in a minute, I call them variation. So yeah, that's perfect.
Sweet. No, let's go.
I just
Do it.
use that language just because like you can take the rhythm and then substitute in things to create the variations, but that is our end goal. So that's even better. Okay, so let me share this right here. I just usually do my notation stuff in Notion. I think it was bought recently by Fender. I don't actually even really recommend this. Sometimes this is a pain in the butt. I believe you use Sibelius, right? Is that your thing? And I think that's probably
Yeah, Sibelius Ultimate. Yep.
it's probably the ultimate choice. This one is fine for for now. At any rate, here's what I have. I just took a little piece of it, and it gives you the general vibe, and then we'll get into the exercises. So I'm gonna play this, even though it's the MIDI and it sounds sort of ridiculous. I try to put a little swing to it, but it just sounds so stiff. But just so you can get the idea. And I wanted everybody to have like a visual cue so we can sort of talk about some of these subdivisions and things we're going to get into. So here's I'm calling this phrase A, phrase B. Okay, so one thing I would try, as silly as it may seem, is, if you have the desire to build up your rhythmic vocabulary, try clapping stuff or drumming it. I can't remember if I shared last episode. Probably not, because it was more the thing you were talking about. But when I was in middle school, I played percussion in the orchestra, and I'm just eternally thankful for that experience. Even though I only did it for middle school, I learned a lot. Like the first thing that you said, Colin, today was patience, and oftentimes I would have to wait like 40 measures just to do a little drum roll or a little crash, or something like that. Have you had any experience like
Yeah,
that?
I was raising my hand. I can relate in what I think was it middle school or like about eighth grade? Yeah, junior high. I started in the concert band, and I played a little drum set and jazz band too. But I gravitated towards. We had to do snare drum and bass drum, but I really took to the timpani because
Me
I had a
too.
good ear and I could tune them or whatever. But
Yeah.
now I'm back at school at my local university, finishing my degree, and they want me to do large ensemble, so I'm back in the wind symphony. So I'm right back, and I'm currently experiencing that again. And yeah, it's more a matter. It's like more a matter of counting 50 measures than it is playing your part. But doing
Yeah.
mallet percussion, which is a challenge because she's picked some real tough pieces, and that
Cool.
can be. I mean, as somebody who's not very good on piano, like it's a fun challenge. It's good for my overall musicianship, but patience for sure with the amount of the measure counting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a similar love for the timpanis. One of my favorite memories as a kid in the orchestra, and I loved that experience. I went to a Waldorf school, and it was very artistic anyway. And anyway, we played Night on Bald Mountain from what is it, Fantasia or something, and the timpanis are just like hellacious. It's so cool, man. I loved that. And I always say, you were talking about mallets. Another thing, listen, if you have like a little kid xylophone set or whatever, try playing this stuff with mallets. Like to Colin's point, like strengthening that rhythmic muscle is so important, or I think so. I always say to people, the best thing I ever did for my guitar playing was start to seriously take piano, and really study piano. And piano is largely a percussion instrument. So anyway, that's my rant on that. So just this right here, and we don't have to get too into the weeds, but I think it is kind of cool to get to know things like dotted eighth notes. They're a really great tool in your playing, just like you would want to know your pentatonic scale. I feel like having a command of that kind of sound, like if you think of first tube, for example. I've found that first tube, a lot of people, the rhythm kind of eludes them, and it seems confusing, but when you really look at it, it's just dotted eighth notes. It really demystifies it. And it's a certain kind of sound that really propels things forward, and it creates a beautiful syncopation. And really, actually, I want to make one point that I think is really important. If you listen to the groove with the bass and everything else, the keys are really kind of sparse and kind of almost like sounds like he's doing either like a Rhodes or a Wurlitzer or some kind of thing that's really airy, but the groove feels very quarter beat, very like a very strong quarter beat rhythm. And so Trey's kind of poking out a little bit with this slight offset syncopation that he's getting into, which is a powerful thing in and of itself. So notice right here that it starts on the and of 1. So you go 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 4 and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and 3E and 4. That was the B phrase there. Okay, so that is the kind of little clip I wanted to use for the material to make this rhythmic displacement exercise. So basically all I did was I took the exact same rhythm, let's say right here, and instead of starting it on the and, I'm starting on beat 1 now. And here's what that sounds like. So already it has a little difference here. Let me go back, and here's the first one. And here's the second one. Okay, so obviously try this on your guitar. So I'll go close up real quick and do that right here. Let me switch my camera around a little bit. Okay, cool. So, you know, it's not difficult to play, and that's kind of the beauty of it. It's just getting to know it rhythmically. So 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E. There's another interesting thing to maybe tie into this, which is that now this is just me, and I'm not trying to speak for Trey at all with the picking, but I know for me, a lot of times I like to assign, not all the time, but most of the time, stronger beats are down strokes, and then the weaker syncopated ones are upstrokes. So I might start with the down here because of 1. So 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E. So what you end up with that, because it's a dotted eighth note pattern, you probably want to count in 16th notes, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E. So I'll have all the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and all the ands assigned to downstrokes, and all the E's and U's on upstrokes. So if you're not quite, accustomed to that, maybe even just, take one note, let's say A, because that's our tonic here, and just go 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and then you could try just doing eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and those are the downs in the 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and those would be the ups. So again, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E. You may not pick it that way all the time, but it could be a good spot to start. So like I say in this worksheet here, I recommend doing each one, 4 times. If you need more, definitely, go for it. Take more reps. On this one, as you'll see, what I've done here is instead of starting on 1, I'm just going to kind of snake the rhythm forward in the measure and start on the E of 1, like I labeled right here, just meaning instead of 1E, you go 1E. So you get this. And that feels quite different than the other 2 versions. So here it is again. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and. Not only does it impact the first note, the beat that you start your first note on, but obviously then it affects where your resolution note is. If you want to think of that as a resolution, it kind of pushes that into a different spot, which is really interesting. So now, this right here, I'm thinking of this as like the 3rd iteration, but this really is the original one. If you look up here, it's identical. I just started on 1, so now we've made our way back to sort of where we started, and it's going to be on the and of 1 this time around. You get 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4 and a I really could slow the tempo down a little bit. In fact, I'm going to do that right now, just for counting purposes. Where is it? Right here. Um, it's at 90. I'm going to change it to 60. That'll be a little easier to count. Okay, cool. So 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. Okay, so then try playing that 4 times or 8 times, whatever you need. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. And then, let's say you've done that 4 times, 8 times, whatever you need. Then this one's really interesting. Start on the of one. So, even like it might be worth just going 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and a 1E and a 2E and. So just kind of pushing it forward, just clapping where the starting point will be. So here's this last iteration for now. And because we've moved it so far forward, now our last note is on the beginning of the next measure. Hey, Colin, did we lose you for a minute?
Yeah, my entire block, my entire
Oh,
road lost power because of the storm. So sorry about that.
oh, all good. Hey, you know what? I just kind of kept things rolling.
Oh, great, great.
Okay, so let me catch Colin up a little bit here. Um, what I did was I just took the first phrase here, okay, and to practice rhythmic displacement, I just started it on one instead of the and of one, which is what Trey does. And then I did one where then we start on the E of one, but we keep the exact same notes in the same pattern, and then start on the and again. That kind of brings us back to where he was. And then I was just as you hop back on the of one. And just as an example of how different things can feel when you just shift where you start and it shifts where you end. So just so you can hear it, here it is. Here's the first one. Okay, so 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. Okay, and then let me recap. We had 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and 4E and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. And actually, I'm going to unshare for a second and pop back here. There's an interesting book. I haven't finished it, but I always keep coming back to it. It's called Forward Motion by Hal Gelbert. And he has this really great concept about, it ties into a little bit of what we're getting into here, which is his kind of stance is that the downbeat is really the end. It's not the beginning. And it's kind of counterintuitive because we call the first beat of the measure one. But his point is like, think about like when you're playing with a band and you're going to end. A lot of times it's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And we kind of end on 1 more often than, like, we don't really end on 4. Like, it doesn't really happen a lot where you would go 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, you could, but the more natural ending is actually 1. And so that last iteration puts the last note on the first beat of the next measure. So it shows you a little bit about there's a tension and release to all of those different iterations. And there's a really satisfying resolution to that last one because of that that downbeat hitting on the last note hitting on the downbeat of the next measure. So hopefully that illustrates how impactful it can be to shift things around without even changing the notes. We haven't even done that yet. There's one more thing I wanted to do real quick, and then I'm going to turn it over to you and see if you have any thoughts. I know you missed a little bit, but you get the general idea, I'm sure. Let me go back to the worksheet here.
Yeah, can I see it again? Just peruse it for a second, because I was like, oh man, I missed everything.
That's a bummer. The power went out, but I'm glad it's back. So yeah. So what I did, Colin, I took that first phrase, and Trey already is putting it on the yeah. There you go.
And then on the downbeat.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the E.
Yeah. And then the and.
And then the and was the first one.
Oh, right. That's just on the start on and of one. So is that one really even different? No, it's the same thing.
That's
Okay.
the same as the one Trey does, but just for the exercise, I kept it
And
as
then
the
the
third.
A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Yeah, so that starts on the A of one, that second one there.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes. So even though on this thing, I recommend, practice each one, 4 times, or I was saying,
Absolutely. Yeah.
like give yourself some reps. Maybe four is not enough, and you may want to do 8 or 10 or whatever. But then give yourself the challenge of sort of what Colin just did. Play through them all in a row. So I'm gonna attempt that right now. Let me go close up. And it's kind of a fun challenge because you have to really be conscious of where you are in the measure. So yeah, maybe if you want, play along with me here. I'm gonna put a measure forward just more as a count in, and then I'm gonna start it on one. Okay, so 1, 2, ready, and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and 4 and a 1. Isn't that cool? Like just how different it feels. Or I don't know. I find that endlessly fascinating how different those feel. Okay, let me hand it over to you. Any thoughts on that? Like, do you do any kind of similar things? I remember last time you were talking about iterations on like how did you say it, with scale patterns, like with sequences. That's what it was. You were
Yeah,
like,
like
okay,
permutating sequences. Yeah, with rhythmic stuff, I don't do as much of this as I should be, or as I should, or as I'd like to. I do teach the principle of when you're starting phrasing, like starting any kind of lick, same exact type of thing. Like, abandon the one altogether, right? And that means tonically, like, if you're in A Dorian or A minor here, or A pentatonic, minor pentatonic, which we're not abandoning because that's what Trey's playing. But from a solo sense, and I'm not going to stay too long on that because that's pitch, but in the rhythm sense, also abandon the downbeat, right? Use the downbeat as your placeholder as the beginning, because that's the easiest thing. But if you're playing any kind of lick, like, do it on that and of one or whatever it was, as opposed to, like, that's an easy downbeat. Try to make it a little early or a little late. Mostly when starting phrases, though, it's a really common bebop thing to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. For some reason, when you start to, my tone down, when you start to play like that, the lines kind of create themselves, or they have for me in the past, as opposed to just um, that intricate, what we call in music, syncopation of starting on a weak beat. Anything but one is almost a weak beat in a way. I mean, I know beat 3 is a strong beat, or that any downbeat is kind of considered a strong beat, but it doesn't have to be the E, the or the and. But if you start on beat 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1,
I was gonna say that's so cool, man. I was gonna say two is
melodic
like
as hell.
yeah, two is such a cool choice. I've heard Trey do that, and others. Like it's a sleeper one because, like, you made a good
Nice.
point. Like, it doesn't have to be the E or the and or the Now, the way I think of it is like when you think about when you watch a YouTube video and your internet connection's bad and it's like 360p or whatever, and then you increase the pixels, like the definition is heightened. That's kind of like having a 16th note consciousness. Is kind of like 4K or whatever. You think of like you could have a quarter note consciousness, maybe start on 2.
That's a fantastic. Sorry to interrupt. That's a fantastic analogy. I was like, "Where are you going with this?" And then it clicked. It's just you're increasing your pixels, your clarity. That's great, man. I love it.
Yeah. So, and hey, you know what? Use what you have. Like, and it's all great. I want to piggyback off of the thing. Let me unshare this for a moment. I'm going to come back to it. I love something you just said. I like to do a similar kind of exercise. Like, take a descending pentatonic thing, like like that. Okay, so A, because we're doing sand like that. Now go like 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and 4E and 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E. And see how, like, one thing I was saying, I think you may have like been off the call when I was saying this, but not only does that impact the beginning of your phrase, but then by virtue of where you start, it impacts your resolution where you land, which is really cool. You know, it changes the feel.
Because it compounds, like
Yes.
it extends, like, you know, by default, like the end of where you're going to land. And you know, we can look at it a very math way of, or time math way of like, well, yeah, if you start an eighth note, you know, late of the downbeat, you're gonna, and it's the same lick, like, you know, like the lick you're playing, then yeah, theoretically, you know, logically, factually, mathematically, time wise, all these things, it's absolutely gonna end an eighth note later. But what it does to us phrasing wise, it's almost like who cares what the math is, because it's more interesting. And then it doesn't mean you have to be done with the lick. It almost inspires us as improvisers who are in this composition in the moment feeling of, oh shoot, there's something new that can be spawned right from that last eighth note, because it feels weird or it feels interesting and it's not your typical expected. It's syncopation, syncopation, syncopation. I think that's, yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, that, and I think that's part of the main point of that book I was referencing, Forward Motion, is that he's like, because of that syncopation, it literally does move things forward. Yes, it inspires the next melodic phrase to come right out of you. Okay, so speaking of which, let's you guys get the idea there. That's rhythmic displacement. You can apply that to anything. Apply it, you know, if you're practicing your major scale, try that. You know, if you're doing your pentatonic stuff or whatever, like, it's endless possibilities that you can do that. Do it with your arpeggios or whatever. For now, I'm going to go to a different idea, which is what I was calling, you know, just substituting a different note. So here is phrase A. What I did was I took phrase A and phrase B and created 4 different variations. And really, this is just scratching the surface. I mean, think of it like this. You know, how many different phone numbers can you get from the 7 digits that we all use, or 10 if you do the area code? Like, it's like I don't know what the exact number is, but it's like millions of numbers can be created. Think of those as the permutations that Colin's talking about. That's what we're talking about here. And it's kind of cool because we have 7 notes in a key or whatever, you know, if you want to think of it like that. It's kind of similar to a phone number in that way. Anyway, here's the original, you know, phrase again, just to get our ears tuned to it. And then what I'm going to do is just substitute, and I picked spots that I like to go by instinct. You know, what feels good more than like you were saying, who cares about the math of it? Does it feel good? Does it inspire you? You know, so here's the first one. Now here's the variation. I just take the third note and make it the minor third. You know, and that already, that's like, oh, so you could have one. Let me zoom in here real quick, if I can figure it out. So you could have one where you're like, and of course I love that little salty, sweet, like micro bend on the third. We talked about that last time a little bit. So, you know, moving on, then what I did, I said, okay, you know what? I guess this is a form of what I think, you know, a lot of people would call restricted practice, where it's like, okay, I'm going to vary things, but I'm going to restrict myself to chord tones. And not for any, there's no big reason for that other than just so that we can practice imagining and seeing different possibilities using kind of restricting ourselves, so that, like, you know how, like, if you have like a million channels on TV or something, like, you never find any, you know, it's like I'm flipping through, I can't find anything. But back in the day, we only had like a few channels, and that was it. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of choice, and it kind of, you had to be creative. So here it is with the 5th as this third note. Okay, so then if I take those 3, you know, in sequence, you could have da, da, oh, actually, I snuck a little extra note in there just out of instinct. I think I did that on the last one anyway. So actually,
Chris, you
let's
know
keep.
what's funny? I was playing along, but on mute. On that variation 2, that was the last one you just played, right?
Yeah,
You played variation 3 by accident, right?
yeah.
I did too.
You did too.
Yeah, that's so weird.
It's funny, man. That was just my instinct to do that, but kind of cool. So, oh, you know what? I think I mislabeled this one right here. This should be variation 4. Okay, so now this one. Let me see. What is the? Let me see. 1, 2, 3. I remember now. I was like, what the heck is the difference? Okay, so here's the one that we both kind of like instinctively played. Okay, now this one right here, instead of starting on the root of the chord, now it's starting on the minor third of the chord. So you can see how quickly you can have like all these different kind of ideas. That one, and that's a little bit of why, earlier when I played the clip of Trey playing around that 8-minute mark, he did a not quite, I wasn't trying to transcribe exactly what he did, but he did sort of a thing like that where instead of starting on 1, he just started on the minor third. I mean one like the tonic is what I meant by that.
Can I mention something here, Chris?
Yeah.
Not to stop you right in the middle, but back to what I was saying of where I've taught the idea of avoiding the 1 both rhythmically but also pitch wise, and that's exactly what you did here. And it's just disclosure to students who are jumping into their improvisation journey, and you're getting this kind of information. While we teach that kind of thing, don't forget about the 1 either, right? It's important to not be like, okay, well, I've advanced. I'm no longer just playing the pentatonic. I'm playing modes. I'm playing arpeggios. I'm playing sharp 11s. It's great. Everything that you've learned, it's important to remember to keep on to. Proof in the pudding of that is the beginning Trey lick here, where he's just starting on the root.
Totally.
So don't abandon the 1 for the rest of your life, but do it as an exercise. I just wanted to reiterate that because
that's really important. It's like I always worry about that a little bit when I'm trying to share an idea, that it won't get taken too rigidly. I'm always like, don't take it too rigidly, because in 2 seconds I'll contradict myself, but it's about being open and seeing all the different things, and it's all good stuff. It's just to work the other muscle a little bit. So then, keeping it moving here, what I did with this next thing is I took the B phrase, and here's the original B phrase. It's da 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 rhythmically, Da, da, da. Okay, so that's the first thing he did. So in this case, now I could have gone the same way and said, okay, I'm gonna take that rhythmic motif, because really what we're talking about is keeping the rhythm intact and saying, hey, let's take some pressure off. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, because that's a really cool rhythm. Let's just put a little extra note in here or there and have many different options. So what I did was I took the blues scale, for the most part, or you can think of it as pentatonic, and just threw in some different notes. So like here. So it's the same, it's the same rhythm, and it's just that classic, that's a classic. Could you play that for them? Because I saw you going through it.
Sure.
That's a classic little bluesy lick. Yeah. Oh, I didn't mean to do that, but I got so excited I pressed the button. See how also
I threw a slide in there too.
I was gonna say that,
force a habit.
No, I think it's such a great thing that happened there, because not only do you get to play around with just the rhythm and the notes, but how do you do them? Like, we have the advantage as guitarists to have one of the most expressive instruments, maybe next to like a violin or something. Like, it's really expressive. My piano teacher would always say, I'm jealous you guys can do bends and stuff. But we can also slide into a note. We could pre-bend down to the note. We could, all kinds of different ways to do it. So I'm really happy that you did it that way, because it just shows another wrinkle in the playbook, kind of. It's just another way to go. Now here in this one, notice, do you notice what I did here? I just, I took the same rhythm, the same notes and everything, just went the other way. Just went up to the fifth instead of going down to the third, and so it's just, again, like, to really drive that home, it's just saying how many different ways could I do this thing? How many, on one hand, it's how many different ways can I do it, but then how can I keep that rhythm intact and keep that groove? Keep the groove is the main emphasis. Then on this one, variation 3. That's another kind of little classic lick where it's a lot like the very first one. It's just that instead of starting on the fifth, literally the fifth fret and the fifth interval wise, you're starting on the third and kind of doing the same little lick. It sounds like looks like you had something to jump in on.
Yeah, and what we're getting there is an upper neighbor to a note. For if anybody's never heard that phrase before, it can either be a neighbor tone, which is a step, and that could be a half step or a whole step, either above or below a chord tone, right? So in this case, our chord tone, I don't know if you can highlight the D there, Chris, in that variation 3. Yeah, and on both sides, well, it's on both sides of that E flat, which is not a chord tone, but it starts from the D, goes up to the E flat, and then goes back down. So just think of it as borrowing sugar from the neighbor, just upper neighbor, and then you come right down. It's a very old technique in classical music too, the whole upper neighbor thing in the non-harmonic chord tone analysis when you analyze a piece of music. But
really cool, yeah. And you could say, okay, whatever my target note is, I could go. Like, you could go a semitone under and a whole step up, or you could do it the other way. It really, I think it comes down to, or you could just do semitone enclosures, and like really, there even though there's common language to these things, by no means are you confined to any of it. But again, it's being creative. What is being creative is just seeing the options that are already there. They're already there for you. Can you see them and hear them more?
Yeah, the sky's the limit of what you want to do. I mean, technically, there's 4 options in that whole neighbor tone business, right? Because you get two down, 2 above. But and like, I love the language you use there, and I'm forgetting it already. But there's I don't know what you said. I'm paraphrasing. Tricks of the trade. There's commonalities that people normally do.
Oh yeah.
But like, you can use either one and go a half step below, half step above. Yeah. Anyway.
Really cool. Okay, and then nothing fancy here. Just a little different flavor. This one thing it reminds me sort of the lick in the riff in Axilla, or part of it. Where Trey, a lot of times he'll resolve down, or like he'll resolve his phrase down to the minor third, which actually feels like it's not quite done. It wants to like go to another thing. So almost, I feel like that's similar to like does something like that happen in Sissy Strut or something, or like there's a little
big time.
That.
And you're dead on with.
Yeah.
And then there's because he goes up and then down to that minor third, and it's the end of the call and answer part of the lick.
And what is the simple scale he's using there in that riff, by the way?
It's just minor pentatonic.
Minor pentatonic, but listen how cool that riff is. Partially because of the skipping or that sort of thing, and then partially just because there's a groove to it.
It's so cool. It's one of the YouTube videos that I've been wanting to make, like the top 5 coolest fish licks, and that Axel lick is up there. It's just it is the epitome of cool. Some are sitting out by the pool, and it rhymes with cool. But no, it's just like, it sounds so liquid cool. Like, it's just awesome. So groovy.
It is so good. Okay, so at any rate, that hits on 2 of the 3 main concepts I wanted to hit, and there's one more. This will be kind of quick. The last point, because and by the way, thanks if you've been hanging with us this long. We sure appreciate it. We're just having fun, just hanging out anyway. So hopefully you guys get stuff out of these things. But just to restate what it was, we We took a couple, a little section of the song and broke it into little phrases, and I'm going to come back to that in a second. Then the first concept to play around with is rhythmic displacement, which is just what it sounds like. You take the original motif and you just move it around. And now I like to have a methodical way to practice it, but really you could put it anywhere. You don't need to think so hard about it. Really, if you look at it, it's 4 dotted eighth notes followed by 2 16th notes, and you can see they're all made of that same DNA. It's just that it just kind of shifts around. The second idea was then taking the original motif and then putting in a different note here or there. In this case, I just chose to use notes from an A minor, so the minor third and the fifth. That's all I did. You could use the seventh if you want, add more color. Maybe there's a ninth, whatever. I just like to keep it simple at first. But you can see the different variations we had from that. And then I took the B phrase, and just to switch it up, I just put in notes from the blues scale. And, there's some fun stuff you can do with that. So anyway, let me unshare that, and I'm going to share this other thing here. Like I said, this is from a beginner piano book, but I think this is some serious wisdom they're dropping in this little book here. Okay. So right over here, this is a thing, like just taking this concept and applying it to your playing, which is kind of what Trey's doing here in a way. Like I said, he doesn't follow this exactly, but let me just kind of define this. Musical question, a short melody that does not end on the home note. Now, in Trey's musical question, so to speak, like I think of that as like the A phrase. He does hit the home note, but basically he's following the larger form of this, where he has like a little answer. Now, the answer that he uses in the example that I shared is more of a contrasting answer, where he doesn't. It's different than the original phrase. So let me go close up and just show you this simple little thing. And you could apply this to so many different types of scenarios. But in this case, you've just got like if you're like in a C chord. That's the musical question. So it's ending on the fifth at the end of that part. So it's not giving us the resolution. And then the answer starts out the same way. So even taking like that little thing, you could keep yourself busy for so long with stuff like that. So if I were to take it more in the sand example, maybe it's like a like that could be the parallel answer that comes back to home, but it kind of started out the same way. Now we can juxtapose that with having down here a musical question. This is the same one, but a contrasting answer. So then, in this case, I'll just play the thing they have written here. So you can hear that the contrasting answer was quite different. It's the same scale stuff, it's the same raw material, but it feels pretty different. So then if we take that, that would be to me like a contrasting answer, where it's like completely, it's like way different than the first one, even though it's using the same, again, raw material. There's no new scale needed or anything like that. But it's more about thinking of the phrasing. And, one thing that I like to kind of put it in this kind of context is like, think about, let me unshare this. I want to come back to having a head. One thing I'll ask people sometimes when they're trying to improve their phrasing is, if you think about reading, let's say just like a textbook in school, okay, like you're studying right now, and there might be textbooks and stuff, and there's great info in, let's say, a page of the textbook, but and there's something being conveyed, there's an idea, there are concepts being conveyed, but what is the difference between that and a great poem? If you really think about it, because really we're trying, like I've heard somebody just in an interview with Trey say, your playing is so lyrical, they said that. And it's like, what is it that's different than, they're both using language, they're using a lot of times the same words, they're using grammar and all that stuff, but there's a very different thing happening in poetry or lyrics often. What would you say, Colin, is like the main difference?
I would say, um, well, there's an element of fact versus fiction being portrayed or being construed to the audience, but more so instead of fiction, I would use the word art and
Ooh.
expression in the poetry, right?
Yep.
It's more to tantalize the senses and our emotional brain than it is for rote memorization of facts of history, which all are wonderful things. Like it's not a wrong or right thing, but God, I hope I'm in the right ballpark of what you're talking about.
No,
Um,
that's really actually that's so cool. I wasn't thinking of it that way, but that is such a good point. Like think of like if you're practicing your scales, that's kind of like the work. That's like the textbook. Like that's the
oh,
fact. That's the work, and then the thing that really makes it poetry or lyrical. It to me, and actually, it's necessary to hit on that. Think of music hits on that emotional, that artistic side, like you were saying. I think that it hits us all that way. I think that the thing with everything you just said, in addition to that, is that poetry has like a rhyme to it. It has a rhythm to it that the textbook maybe it does on accident, but it's not a
yeah,
core
no.
part of the textbook. It's just like here are
Right,
the facts, kind of like here's the scale. Okay, you got the scale or whatever. Here's the chord.
right.
And then one thing I know I hear a lot from people saying, "Okay, I've got those things, but why is it not? It sounds like a textbook. It sounds like I'm practicing." And it's like, hey man, you just need to take that thing, and just like poetry has like I forget all the structures. There's like an A B or AABB, ABAC,
And
all this.
I was gonna mention that in the pancakes piece, the piano piece.
Yeah,
I was very disappointed you didn't sing the pancakes line. No, I'm just kidding. I was singing it in my head. When actually, can you pull that back up? Can you bring that
sure.
screen share back up? Just so I know the right
I
language.
love where I love that we're hey look, we can get some cool stuff out of some weird places sometimes, and a children's piano book happens to be one of them.
So and because you just brought up the form ABA, and all that type of stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm taking a music history class right now, and we've gotten into rondo form, ternary, binary, and all that type of stuff from the old dead guys. But if you think about it, you've got binary form, which is A and B,
Yeah.
and then you got rounded binary form and all these. And I'm not going to get into them because I'll probably screw some of them up, but ternary form is like ABA prime. So think about this. I'm just going to say it like this. Musical question and parallel answer is very much like A and A prime because that parallel answer is very much like A, but it's slightly variated. Like the whole focus of this lesson. There's
Could you
talking
could you
about
because I don't speak that same kind of what does the prime mean? Does that mean like a resolution or what is prime about?
so usually what prime means, and I don't know if it's a Latin thing, but you'll see it like this. Say you've got binary form, which is A and then B, and then they're usually both repeated once, right? But if you have A, B, A prime, that's prime when there's the little asterisks about it. So it's very much like the original material A, but it's not quite. It's been variated just a little bit. B is totally new material. So B in the pancake song is the contrasting answer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool.
I would say. So
Yeah.
I found that fascinating because it's some old dead guys talking to me once again.
Yeah. Hey,
I thought of one more thing back to the question of textbook versus prose or poetry.
yeah.
I don't think it's exactly the answer you were maybe searching for, but it's the when tying it to like guitar lessons and guitar playing and in a teaching moment. You've got your textbook stuff, your facts, your vocabulary, your terms, your definitions, historical dates, all that kind of. That's your scales and arpeggios and your rhythms and the stuff you practice. But then practicality, performance is
Mm.
maybe the other thing that could be an answer. Like, what's the difference between the poem and then that? It's like the poem, and yes, I've said it's more art, it's more delivering to the emotional brain or whatever. But it's also something that's in the performance sphere in humanity. It's something. I mean, you could perform reading a textbook in front of an entire group of people, but people would argue right away, what the heck are you doing? Like we can go find that at the library or order the book. But the poetry and the prose or singing something, or it's more practical in the sense of a performance sense. I don't know if that's
Yeah, totally.
that
That's
works, but
that's good stuff, man. Yeah. So, um, yeah. So at any rate, with the pancake song and the stuff that Colin was just hitting on, hopefully that gives you some ideas to play around with. And in my hope here, down the road, I will share some some more kind of uh fancy sounding licks or whatever from Trey or whoever else. But I wanted to kind of start with something that was like really accessible and that we can all relate to and we could all use. And that's my hope, is that you can realize like you have more, more than you may realize you do. That's the first thing. And then if you just kind of look at things in a certain kind of different way, you can get even more out of what you already have. That's the main thing I hope to get across here. So, any last ideas or anything, Colin, or what do you think?
I think it was great. Thanks for sharing this one. Nothing that jumps out. There's one thing I would say. I don't know if it's too detailed or whatever, but can you bring back the main PDF of the rhythms?
Yeah.
Of the Trey lick, just to let people know, if you're new to rhythm and you're not reading rhythm, there's tab there, right? And sometimes like in Sibelius, I can either do it like this, or I can put just tab below where there's no notation above, because notation.
Oh yeah, you know what? Let me.
Oh,
as you're saying
you probably
that,
have some options there to put the notation or the rhythmic values, attach them to the tab thing. Right.
So I could do no, not here. Where is that? Let me find that.
That's the one thing I wanted to say, but the
score options. How do
so
I do that?
but the main thing I wanted to say was there's two different ways to write the rhythm that Chris has on the screen.
Yeah.
He's got dots on there, and some people, when they start learning to read music, they get shown dots right away and they understand dots. And then
Here we go.
some people get taught with ties. And there is a benefit to learning rhythm with ties in that it shows where the beats are. And there's no wrong or right. I think more advanced players are reading dots, or able to read dots. I think a lot of it depends. Like that's great. You can see the rhythm of 8th note, 16th notes dots on there.
Yeah.
And that's really helpful. But like we see that first 8th note is on the and then it connects. Well, it's got a dot on it, right? So what we can't see is where beat 2 is.
That's the tricky part.
So
Yeah.
so it is it, and there again, there's no right or wrong here. There's two different methods, and I was in a composition independent study last semester with my advisor, and I was like, so what's up with that? Is there a wrong or right? He's like, no, it's kind of more old school to do it with the dots, but maybe it's since the jazz era came out and it's so syncopated music that they're like, we want to be able to see the beat, or maybe it's a school education thing, but have ties. And maybe I don't know if it's easier or harder, but I think maybe that the dots are slightly for a more advanced reader. But
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I like seeing the beat. It just it takes way more anxiety if I can see the beat. But
Totally.
there's obviously nothing wrong with this. It's just two ways.
Oftentimes, like if I'm writing out the tabs for a fish song, for example, I much prefer to write it the way you're saying, because I do think that if you don't have that, and I sure hope this doesn't come across as pretentious, but that higher definition thing of the rhythm, that can be really confusing. Like if you're like, well, okay, yeah, the dot's there, but where the heck, where am I? And so the way that you're talking about tying an 8th note to the next 16th of the next beat is a great way to see that. So I 100% agree.
I'd like to defend you. It's not, what you did is not pretentious at all, because you were able to play it you were able to physically play it on your guitar too and demonstrate what it sounds like. So that goes out. I wouldn't worry about that. I think that goes out the window. But
There we go. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And you know what though? Also, the cool thing about having these things, like guys, if you're out there and you're like, hey, well, like, what's something I can do to work on that thing, kind of like what you were just talking about, let us know, and we can cook up another episode where we have some more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. If you have like a lick from a song you think would be cool for us to talk about, we're really trying to keep it to like no more than like 30 seconds, because it really in breakdown analysis mode or transcribing mode, 30 seconds is like a lifetime. It takes a long time to kind of break stuff down. So yeah, if you have ideas, share them. Ideally, if you have timestamps or whatever, that'd be cool. Yeah,
Great
and
lick, man.
more to come. And so this one again, you're seeing this on Colin's channel. Next episode will be episode 3. Colin will be bringing something to the table. I'm looking forward to seeing what that'll be. That'll be over on my channel. We'll just kind of ping pong back and forth and cross pollinate a little bit. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. This was really fun. Glad the power came back on.
Yeah, really sorry about that. We've had almost 3 feet of snow. It was like 2.5 feet or something crazy. I stopped like counting because it was insane. But it's been done for 24 hours. But I think there's weight on trees, and it just
Yep.
gave way for a good 10 minutes there. So I apologize to the to the YouTube everybody watching. But glad to have come back here and finish out the episode. And
Yeah.
everybody, thanks for your time. Thank you, Chris, and thanks for sharing this great lick. I'm gonna give this sand a listen. How long is that full sand?
22 minutes or
Oh my
thereabouts.
God, that is
Yeah.
a long sand. That's so
Yeah.
long. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So next week I'm gonna give you guys a little hint. The tune or the venue has a great view. That's all I'm gonna say. The venue's
Okay.
got a great view.
I think I know. I think I know maybe what we're talking about here. But okay, right on. Well, thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.